Welcome to our listeners. This is Mark Waterfield, President and owner of Public Agency Training Council. Thank you so much for listening in on our PATC podcast. Public Agency Training Council is the country's largest and longest running provider of seminars for police and fire, jail officials, other first responders. And we have a podcast that we present our instructors and others with interest in the public safety community to discuss new developments and new products and services. With us today is one of our instructors, Tim Randall. Tim, how are you?
Doing good. Great to be here, Mark.
Great. And you are calling in from where?
Boise, Idaho.
All right. And that's where you live, is that right?
Yeah, we live just here in the mountains of Idaho, and I'm originally from Los Angeles. We moved to Idaho here quite a few years ago, and just enjoy the outdoor activities. Actually, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going skiing.
Good deal. Good deal. Have you had a lot of snow?
Yeah, it's been a good year. We've got a lot of good snow this year. So, yeah, it's been a good season.
Fantastic. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background.
So, like I said, I'm originally from Los Angeles, started my law enforcement career down there, and then I moved to Idaho here, and I worked for a local agency here for 31 years and retired from there. During the course of that career, I spent most of my time in investigations as a criminal investigator, and also spent a lot of time working with hiring, recruitment, and background of new officers. Since I've retired, I still work for an agency. My old chief went to as a chief of another agency about 2 hours south of where I live here, a town called Twin Falls. So I work for him part-time, helping him with his hiring, recruitment, and background. Also been, for about 9 years, been working with the Public Agency Training Council, doing training. Now also that we are starting this new service as far as offering background investigations to agencies. So try to stay busy doing stuff.
Fantastic. You do try to stay busy. What are some of your hobbies?
Well, I just, like I say, enjoy the outdoors. This time being winter, I live right below a ski resort, so do a lot of skiing in the winter. In the summertime, in that, I motorcycles, do a lot of motorcycle touring, riding my bicycle, kayaking, hiking, climbing, just all around outdoor activities.
And of course, fishing.
That's right. We did get out and did some fly fishing. That was a good time.
Absolutely. Tell our audience about some of the classes that you teach.
So I teach 3 basic classes. I teach a basic criminal investigation class. I also teach a interview and interrogation course. And then also the class I've been doing a lot lately is a class on recruitment, hiring, retention, and background, where this is seems to be a hot topic right now as far as finding good candidates, hiring good candidates, also vetting good candidates. And so it's like I say, I'm no expert in anything. I've just been just a cop that did this for a lot of years and learned a lot of things along the way, and now get to be able to share some of these things that I've learned. And so yeah, we offer those in-person training. We also have webinars specifically for background investigators to help them and teach them how to do background investigations. We have also contracted with several agencies, help them as far as setting up their background process. We just recently contracted with a university police department that had several campuses around the state, had probably about 16 investigators doing backgrounds, and they lacked the training and standardization as far as the process. And so we work with them as far as, again, standardizing their process, training their investigators on how to do backgrounds. And that's one of the things that agencies tend to be lacking in as far as the background investigators, having trained background investigators. A lot of times we use our investigators and we have good trained investigators, but a background investigation is just a little bit different as far as the information we're looking for, how we get that information. And so it's important that agencies have investigators that are trained to do backgrounds.
So now you're rolling out a new venture called PATC Backgrounds?
Yeah, so, we find that there's a lot of agencies that just don't have the manpower or the resources or the training in that to do sufficient backgrounds. We felt that we could offer this at a, reasonable cost to help agencies to do sufficient backgrounds. Because if you're a bigger agency, you probably have people that you can do that. But it's usually the smaller agencies that don't hire as many people that do that as much, that have the consistency or the training or the quality as far as the backgrounds that they do. And so, again, we're just trying to offer a service here that hopefully that those that don't have the ability to do those things, that we can possibly help them out.
And how do you go about doing that?
You can go online and you can find all kinds of different, background investigations and things like that. And so, but it's important to look at what you're actually getting for what you're spending. I mean, you can get background investigations for $39.99, but all you're getting is somebody who is running their name through databases looking for something that is bad. And there's a whole lot more to a background than just seeing if you can locate anything bad on them. No tickets, no arrests, lawsuits, things like that. The background itself is more important, is getting to know that candidate and making sure that they have, again, the character to be a police officer. There's no underlying issues that might surface during their employment. Also that we're making sure that they're the fit. Not every officer is a perfect fit for every agency. There's a culture, there's a person-to-person fit, there's a person-to-agency fit. And so we go into great detail to look at personalities and that, as far as, is this the right person for this agency?
Are there specific steps that you take in that regard?
Some of the things, again, ours is very thorough and in-depth, and some of the areas where I see that are lacking as far as in background investigations is that we actually interview the candidate personally. I don't believe that a background investigator can do a sufficient background unless they've actually met and talked to that candidate. And so many background investigators are just working from the paperwork that's provided to them. But I believe that you really need to know that individual. And so we do an actual personal interview with them. We also go over every bit of information that they have provided during the process, because there's a whole lot more information you can get from a person of them checking a box, yes or no, as opposed to asking that question and how they answer that question. We go in great detail with them. We make personal contact with all of their references, whether work references, personal references, things like that. Again, because there's a whole lot more information you get in talking personally to somebody rather than sending a form out to somebody and have them fill that form out and get it back to you. We also do an in-depth internet and social media search. We use search engines that we can locate information on people. We also do an in-depth internet search on an individual. We also search their social media, look for any indications, both good or bad, in their social media. And again, we have tools that we can use to access a lot of that information. We also go into great depth into their education. We don't just look and see if they have a high school diploma or a college. We go into great depth and look at the classes they took. We look at the grades they took, and do they have the cognitive and functional skills that we think they will need to be able to go through the training. We also look at their finances. One of the reasons we look at finances, there used to be this idea that we looked at finances because if somebody had financial problem, that they could be susceptible to a bribe. And I guess that could still be the case. But I think more important that a person's financial history says a lot about the person, says a lot about their character, says a lot about their ability to make good decisions, commitments, and things like that. We also look in great detail into their family dynamics, spousal dynamics. As far as work, we go into great detail looking at not just whether they do a good job at work, but what is their socialization? What is their interaction with other people at work? We also look at a lot of other things. We look for any indications of possible addictive behaviors, whether it be drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, gambling. Again, backgrounds don't go into great detail. When I teach the class on background investigation and I talk about asking them about pornography and the questions that we ask them, some people are uncomfortable with that, or they say it's not illegal to look at pornography. And that's true. But if we're finding that with pornography and also other things, that people have some serious addictions, if you hire a person that has an addiction to pornography, I guarantee you it will show itself on the job. Likewise with any other kind of compulsive or addictive behaviors, whether it be, dealing with sex or drugs, alcohol, or things like that. We really look in depth. And it's not just, again, about finding bad things about people. It's about character. For instance, in my background investigation class, I talk about, moral character. And I question candidates if they've ever cheated on their spouse, what their background is there. And some people are, again, uncomfortable with asking that. Some people say, it's really none of our business. Again, it's all about character. If people are doing things they don't want other people to know about, whether it's illegal or not, okay, those are character flaws. And somebody asks, so well, just because somebody stepped out on their wife or something one time, you're not going to hire them. I said, no, that's not the case at all. What this is they're like puzzle pieces, and individually by themselves, they really mean nothing. But as you put these puzzle pieces together of all these different things, then a picture will emerge of this person, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. And so that's the importance of getting a lot of information and detailed information. Another thing that we do in this process, a process of what we call a longevity assessment. And a longevity assessment is basically a statistical measure of career expectancy. Is we look at the candidate at how long, what's the reality that they'll be there a year from now? What's the reality that they'll make it through training? What's the reality is that they'll be there 5 years from now? And we do that to help the agency to kind of make, again, a decision on if this is a person that looks like they have bigger aspirations or they want to be at a different agency or something, but yet you can get 3-4 years out of them before they leave, then maybe, yes, maybe we will hire them. And if that's worth it to get that many years out of them, because again, the turnover rate in law enforcement has gone up. We also, again, just the amount of applicants that we're getting has gone down. It used to be we'd have 1 or 2 openings and we'd have, 100 people apply for 1 opening. We don't have that luxury now. And so now we have to, before we didn't even really have to recruit. We just advertised and we saw who applied. But we can't do that anymore. We have to actually take an active recruiting stance where we actually go out, look for the people we want, and convince them to come to work for us. The other thing is when you're talking about background is who's going to do your backgrounds and how much does it cost? I know there's agencies that say we can't afford to, do a background. And the reality is you can't afford not to do one. All it takes is one candidate, one lawsuit to, outprice that cost of doing a thorough background. And so it's really important that, again, that they do that. So there are different ways that agencies can do that. One is that you have your investigators, do those backgrounds. And that's when I was a detective. That's one of the things that we used to do. We used to get assigned backgrounds. The problem with that is oftentimes they're good investigators, but they're not trained in doing background investigations, which is different than a criminal investigation. Second of all, these investigators already have a caseload. They got more work they can do. And now either that work suffers to do the background or the background takes a long time because they don't have time to work on that background. If you're a big enough agency and you have a unit and people to hire to do that. Now, another trend for agencies to do is to hire retired cops. Again, it's one of the things I do work for an agency. And I know several agencies do it is they hire back retired cops to work on a part-time basis doing background investigations for them. Good experienced investigators, you're paying them just an hourly wage. You don't have to pay them benefits to do those. And then the other resources then is contracting out the background investigation. And again, you can go online and find lots and lots of companies that can do that for different prices and stuff. But the key is to find one that's doing, again, a thorough background investigation. Because the problem with if we have this term called a gypsy cop, that we get these cops that they get themselves in trouble and then agencies, instead of firing them, they give them the option to resign, it makes it easier on the agency to get rid of them. And then this person can just disappear, but then they can get picked up by another agency and they may not know unless they do a thorough background investigation. And so we get these cops that, go from agency to agency that just do a lot of destruction. And so these background investigations, again, are important in trying to find them and root out those kind of problems. And so it's important, again, that you have a quality background. Again, you can different price ranges in that, and what we charge may seem expensive to some, but the reality is if you really look at it on paper, is if you hire people, pay benefits, or if you're doing cheaper ones, what you don't get as far as that background. And so what's happening, and you can just go to, Google this or go to YouTube and see case after case where agencies are being sued because they're hiring these gypsy cops or these bad cops, and they're not finding out about these underlying problems, which when it comes out in the news, whatever, anybody else can find that information very quickly. And so not only does that officer get sued, but then the agency is going to get sued for what they did. But now on top of that, what they're doing is they're also suing for negligent hiring. In other words, that the agency should have known about these things before hiring this officer. And then that, again, where the price tag really starts to go up.
Absolutely.
And you being a labor attorney, you understand
right,
that.
Absolutely. And, this sounds like a very dynamic tool and one that departments very much need. So if a listener was interested in retaining PATC backgrounds, how would they go about doing that?
Basically, they can call our office. or call me personally. And my phone number is 208-859-3106. Or just go on to patc.com to our website. We have contact information there. We can tell you in detail as far as what we can do for you. We can quote you a price. We then will sign a contract and then do the background investigations for you. And then we will set that up. We will send you out all the materials that you need to fill out and do the background. We will then assign a background investigator to the case. They will contact and meet with the candidate and then conduct that background. Now, one of the things about backgrounds too is that the turnaround time. One of the things with agency is in losing people, and that is taking too long in the process to get them processed, and we might go to another agency. We can do most backgrounds in a turnaround of about 2 to 3 weeks, unless there are unusual circumstances. But we can do turnarounds on backgrounds in about 2 to 3 weeks. Again, it's quick, it's effective, it's in depth, it's detailed, and again, thorough as far as
That sounds great.
process.
I really appreciate your explanation of this. It seems like a fantastic program. Got the contact information there. And thank you so much for visiting with us today and informing our listeners about PATC backgrounds. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at patcpodcast1@gmail.com.
1